first going to start with introductions of our staff. Most of you know Deborah Cole, our managing director. Deborah is in her 10th year of service with the MAB program. Her background is in student services and education, and she earned her master's degree here at K-State in 2002. Next, we have Mary Bowen. Mary's been with the MAB program for 14.5 years. She earned her master's degree in 2013 from the University of Denver, and her job description was enhanced this past spring as she assumed responsibility for the Ag Econ Department communications, and in addition to our MAB marketing. I am Sarah Tortella. I serve as the emissions rep here with the MAB. My most recent role was in talent acquisitions with Caterpillar after more than a decade serving in the US military. Our speaker today is Dana Brooks. She will be discussing supply chain and logistics in the pet food industry. I'm very excited to introduce her. Dana is the president and CEO of the Pet Food Institute. She has more than 30 years of experience across the food and agricultural industries. Oh, goodness. I apologize. I am having some technical difficulties. Okay, I apologize. Like I said, more than 30 years of experience across the food and agricultural industries, including leadership roles in federal and regulatory outreach. Prior to her current position, Dana served as the Senior Director of Government Affairs for Land O'Lakes. Also, she served as the Director of Government Relations for Elanco Animal Health, Senior Vice President of Government Relations at National Milk Producers Federation, and Director of Public Policy at the American Farm Bureau Federation. Dana grew up on a catfish farm in Arkansas. This experience informed her of the challenges of both conventional and unconventional farming and led to a desire to influence policy at the highest levels. In 2000, Dana served as a legislative assistant in the US House of Representatives and aided in policy changes to the Farm Bill. Dana earned her bachelor's degree in agriculture from the University of Arkansas, Monticello, and a master's degree in agribusiness from K-State. Dana was awarded the Alumni Merit Award at her alma mater, and in 2008, Arkansas State University Agricultural Outstanding Alumnus in 2018. She's currently serving as an industry advisor for the K-State MAB program. Dana, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to join in with this great group of folks. It's so fun to talk to people from Kansas State, especially the MAB program, or those that are interested in the MAB program. Hope to have some influence on recruiting at times, but definitely very close to my heart that I'm here and speaking to you. And just to add just a quick note about myself, all that was great. There's I came into the MAB program in 2010. And at that time, I was working for the National Milk Producers Federation, and we were rewriting 90-year-old dairy policy in the Farm Bill. So it was an extremely challenging time for work, but my CEO at National Milk was very supportive of me going through this program. And I'll just say, if I can do it, anybody can do it if you just are, committed and determined. And immediately after, upon completing the program and receiving my master's certificate within a month or two, I was offered another job, and that was with Elanco Animal Health. And a part of being able to qualify for that job was having a master's degree. I just really had no idea how many doors would open up to me with the MAB program. I knew that it was a gap in my resume. When I looked at my resume, I've got a lot of experience. That's a product of, being a farm kid from Southeast Arkansas and working my way through school. But But my weak link was certainly the education part on my resume. And I can't say thank you enough to Mary and Deborah and Dr. Featherstone and the support staff and the instructors at MAB for helping me through it. And it's been certainly was a tipping point in my life to put me in the place that I am today, president and CEO of the Pet Food Institute in Washington, D.C. I just noticed that on this, on the presentation, as my chairman of the board, I did helped him with a presentation and didn't fix the first page on the slide. So, but I've been with PFI for a little over 3.5 years. So yeah, we can jump on to about PFI. So to tell you, you can go to the next slide too, Sarah. Thank you. So about Pet Food Institute, the really exciting thing is that the Pet Food Institute based in Washington, D.C. represents more than 95% of the pet food manufactured in the United States today. And several of our companies are global. And that in part means that we are the largest pet food association in the world. We also participate with some of our sister trade associations around the globe, and we are founders of the Global Alliance for Pet Food Associations. So it's a global association based in Brussels that PFI was a part of founding about 15 years ago, and because of that, I have a standing seat as an officer on that board. But you can see here where we are a member-based trade association, so sometimes saying the name institute throws folks off a bit, but we are a trade association representing the industry here in Washington, D.C. Our number one priority for our industry is food safety. My second week on the job, I met with the FDA, Center for Veterinary Medicine, as the regulatory body overseeing pet food. And they quickly schooled me on the fact that FDA will receive more concerns, complaints, or questions about pet food than they do about baby formula or infant food. So it's mind blowing. Think about that. We really have spent a lot of time working in agriculture, but as you know, and as I'll go through the program, talking about how we certainly are more aligned with human food now than we are with animal feed. So it puts us in a bit of more of a spotlight and a lot more interest in our category, and especially in the aisles in the grocery store. So this is our mission is number one is pet food safety. We also are about nutrition, complete and balanced meals, and PFI advocates for transparent, science-based regulatory environment for members while supporting consumer choice. So we are very much a part of the fact that anyone that wants a pet should be able to afford the food that they feed to their pet, and all food should be nutritious, complete and balanced, and safe. And so that's really exciting to be here in this space now. So we'll move on. I'll talk a little bit about PFI and our membership to lead up to our challenges with supply chain. So as I mentioned, we are our primary category of membership are for producer members. Those are members that are the manufacturers. They can be companies that you know about in Kansas, Heels Pet Nutrition, Simmons Pet. I think Mars has a treat facility there. I think they do greenies there. I think Althea now has a facility in Kansas, maybe in Bern. But quite frankly, Kansas is a very large state for pet food. It's our number one state for pet food manufacturing as well as ingredient sourcing. And then, as you can imagine, the surrounding states. So both of our membership definitely are the producer members. Then we have non-PFI members that are or that make up the rest of the U.S. production. There may be hundreds of those, but by volume, they're very small. And as I said, our PFI members are made up of pet food makers. We also have associates that include our ingredient suppliers and those that are related to the industry with services such as equipment and testing, manufacturers that are part of our association. So I'll show you really quickly about our team. We're a very small, nimble team. That's the next slide. Here in Washington, D.C. So our industry is we're pushing a $40 billion industry. I'll pop back one more. We're pushing $40 billion, and we have large companies and we have smaller companies that are members. We have everything from brands that like I said, Hills, Purina, Smuckers, General Mills, those food companies that have gotten into the space. Some are new entrants into pet food. We also have like multiple generational pet food manufacturers that were probably started the business being in feed or cornmeal, and whenever when our diets were a bit different earlier in the 20th century. But in our office, so you can see that we're 6 of us, and the primary focus is on government and regulatory affairs. That's our bread and butter. That's what we do. So I have 2 lobbyists, one focused on state, one on federal, but they can cross over, a regulatory affairs person that does food safety focus, business operations, and then our communications. We do have consultants around the country, as well as here in Washington, D.C., and other support groups, a PR firm out of Ohio. So we're small here, but we have a lot of support around the country and globally. Next, I'll show you a bit about how do we do what we do, how do we lobby, how do we engage, and a lot of it's, you got to have a partnership. Going alone in Washington, D.C. is very hard. So we definitely enjoy and work closely with our partners in that. That's National Grain and Feed Association, the North American Renders Association. I was at their conference last week where my CEO spoke, so that was the cover page was from his. American Feed Industry Association, AFIA. HABRI is a Human Animal Bond Research Institute. So we take a lot of our information about the relationship that we have with our pets, what they do to what pets do to reduce our stress, how teaching children to read, so many things that we've learned from human interaction with animals. HABRI hosts that. The Animal Health Institute, the ABMA, you can see them on here, and as I mentioned earlier, the Global Alliance for Pet Food Association. But we partner and we work a lot with our stakeholder groups. Our mission's all the same. It's about either food safety, pet safety, or human safety. So we can see how it can be a really symbiotic working relationship with these associations. The next slide, we'll start getting a bit more into our pet food size and scope. So you can go to the next one. So why are we here, and why are we talking about pet food? Well, it's a very emotive space. And so I would venture to say, if I could do a survey on this call, how many people have pets at home or grew up with pets, or maybe you're in school now and don't have time for a pet, but you plan on having another pet in your future. At least 2 out of 3 of you have pets in a household. And what we are discovering is a lot of those, not just one pet, it could be multiple pets in a household. So our pet population in homes is just booming, and especially during COVID. And that goes back to that human animal bond that we have learned that help with stress, anxiety, lack of social interaction. But 2 out of 3 households. So what does that really mean for the pet food industry? You can click one more time and you can see how many bowls we feed. 180 million bowls. That's a lot. And everything from teeny tiny teacups to Great Danes and larger. So, some of our companies wish everybody had at least one Great Dane in their house, but realistically, we have a wide range of dog and cats that we feed, and we support them all. So moving on to the next slide. So you can see our impact, the impact we have in the United States in our manufacturing. So PFI members employ nearly 25,000 people in 32 states. But if you look at that, you look at how we generate through everything from transportation to agriculture to farming, it's nearly 400,000 jobs. And it's 8 million tons of plant and animal-based ingredients that we use to make pet food per year. So that puts 6.9 billion into the agriculture supply chain. We partnered with the North America Renders Association and the AFIA Foundation iFeeder. Last year, well, we actually partnered with them in 2019 to collect this data to be able to show what is our relationship with agriculture and how we value added into the supply chain. It kind of hit me once I just left, working on a farm bill with Land O'Lakes. And then I came to PFI, and within a couple of months, we did a fly-in on Capitol Hill with our PFI board members and government relations committee staff. And it was really interesting as I'm going around meeting with people that I've lobbied for 15 years or worked on the Hill with, and when we were always talking about agriculture, and the question they asked was like, well, where do you source your ingredients? Where does it come from? Is your corn from our state, or the animal proteins, do you buy that local? And it was really an aha moment for me to be able to say, yeah, of course. I mean, we see where our biggest manufacturing facilities are, top 5 producing states. That's by design, because when you think about your supply chain management, you want to be closest to your ingredients, and you're really integrating that process. So it really brought to mind that we needed to have this information to be able to share as we meet with members of Congress or in agriculture commodity groups. What role do you play in pet food, and why is it important? So I was really excited. It took a little bit of time for us to get this data collected. Of course, then we receive it, and it's COVID, so we weren't able to do probably the big dog and pony show that we wanted to do to roll out. But the information is all on our website. You can find the entire analysis of all of the ingredients and the top ingredients that we use in pet food manufacturing. Things may have changed a little bit, though. This data was collected in 2018, 2019, and 2020, we had some supply chain disruption, and going into 2021, and I'll talk a bit about our concerns about 2022. So if we go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'm not even advancing on mine here, so I'm going to drop my bit. Okay, so we talk about again in 2020, so this is really 2019 information. We were a $37 billion industry. I dare say that when we collect this data, probably next year, that we're going to be at $40 billion. We're $1.7 billion in exports, and our 3 largest markets are, 2 of the 3 are neighbors, Canada and Mexico, and then Japan actually being second. So there's a real need, a real excellent industry that we represent, but also opportunity for the export market. You'll see this little diagram, a schematic of how we make it with care, and love being able to say we want reliable, trusted ingredient supplies. That's part of what makes our products nutritious and safe. We really talk about food safety procedures and FSMA and the things that we do to support pet and manufacturing health, testing of ingredients during arrival and unloading. We are regulated both federal and state, which makes us unique in a lot of in the food space. We're more so than human food. We have through the Food Safety Modernization Act and the role that we play in educating our members, which are now fully on board with FSMA and next phases of it, to continue to monitor during the manufacture, and then safety and traceability assurances during packaging, and regulatory oversight that goes to state and federal government. And we do have a pretty aggressive recall system. So sometimes people are like, why are there so many recalls in pet food? It could be everything from something in the label not quite matching up. It could be printing ink. There's so many things that we recall for, not always a food safety risk, but the ones that are most egregious that you've heard on the news in the last couple of years are certainly concerning and food safety risk for your pets and for people. But this is why we really at PFI push on food safety and practices that we implement, and then a code of practice even for our members. So next slide, please. So we talked about a little bit about rendering, and that's always a, just want to say this is something that we rolled out last week with them. This is part of the supply chain for us. So a lot of people hear rendering, isn't that, a nasty business? You're taking byproducts, and it's really thought of as not really quality, but it is. I mean, a lot of rendering are things that we use either through the rendering process or through straight out of the supply chain, like from say chicken, are pieces, parts, and cuts that we may not necessarily consume here in the United States. I go back to say I'm from Southeast Arkansas, so I still have family members that pull into the quick stop to get fried livers and gizzards. Not my preference anymore, but those are, some of those pieces and parts are things that are of high nutrient value to our pets, that we're just not consuming at the quantity as humans. So, but it's very nutritious for pets. And I'll dare say that left to their own devices, our pets will eat things that we really don't prefer not to even bring into the house. But that's the animal protein industry last year was very disruptive. I don't have to tell you all about it. I'm sure you've all studied it, lived it, or work in it. That the supply chain last year was a wake-up call that just in time, probably supply chain, we all implement that to reduce storage and handling. But what we discovered last year with the COVID and the employees and manufacturing shut down, how tight that balance is in human food and the relationship it is with pet food. Again, if our food, pet food, or pieces, parts, cuts, or rendering of human food or animals that have gone to slaughter, then we have a real challenge with that. And last year was significant for us. Then when we throw on, the logistics of, I can start from California and work our way all the way to the East Coast of challenges last year outside of COVID with weather, what happened in Texas, and you guys got experience some of that with the cold, unprecedented. And we've had in Arkansas, floods, and then we go from drought to flood. Again, from Kansas, you guys really know about drought. And then it really created an imbalance, and I think we're going to be years. Next year is not going to be any easier, and we're looking at how we're going to be able to catch up to that. So one of our messages to the renderers, because as we look at this competition that we're experiencing with renewable fuels, specifically renewable diesel. You can move to that next slide, I believe. So when we were talking with them, about their importance and how important they were to the industry, you can go to the next one. Where we talked about, again, if you see here, and this is from that report that I showed you, the products that we use and the tons that we use in it. So you see corn, that's something you guys would be interested in. Then the next few things look at that are proteins, and either from plant or animal. We can see a little bit of wheat there that would also be of interest to you guys. So you can go to you can click again, and you can see that's a big bulk of things. If you see meal in there, that's been further processed. So all of those animal proteins in that come from the rendering side. So the next slide. So by category, we'll have the diverse, farm and meal-based ingredients. You can see that in the animal side is 4.4 million tons. And then you see meat and poultry products. And click that one more time and you'll see how much also we get. We really highlighted this for the rendering proteins. So between those two bottom, the meat and poultry products and the rendering protein meals, all that came from the meat supply chain, which was all disrupted. Okay, you can move forward. So as I mentioned, one of our big campaigns that we're going to be doing in 2022 is a spotlight renewable diesel and renewable energy. I've worked in DC, well, worked in the ag industry, and I've worked in DC for several decades now. And I've had a love-hate relationship with renewable energy, just kind of quite frankly depended on where I was working and who I was representing. But at Paint Fi, we've been pretty neutral on the issue. We did not see it impacting our ingredient supply. A lot of, again, if we say byproducts, some of those things came from, could come from the byproducts of human, of energy, there's, so many things that made up what we could use. But when we look at renewable diesel, it sends shivers up our spine because it's cleaner, it's faster burning, it's going to be the thing moving forward, and actually can make a little money off of renewable diesel compared to some of the other renewable fuels. So if you move on to that next slide. So we're kind of concerned about we're still in a time of ingredient disruption with the supply chain, with everything that happened last year, still not being fully online this year with the restaurants and a lot of places we could get our pieces, parts, and cuts. And then we're also going to be competing against renewable fuels, specifically for renewable diesel ingredients. And it takes away that market opportunity. We're willing to pay more, but with government mandates and tax incentives and states and federal, it puts us at a disadvantage. So what we are concerned about is that we're going to see more tallow and animal oils going into that mix for renewable diesel. We expect to be out next year of some products, and then we're going to be competing against, and then we're going to be going to the vegetable oils. Well, the salad dressing industry wasn't very excited for us to tell them that, and the food industry, a lot of the food manufacturers have created a coalition, and we wanted to join, and they were very kind to tell us no, because they didn't want us, they see us as competition with them rather than working together in a coalition for increased ingredients or concerns with what's going to go on in the renewable industry side. So you can move on to the next slide. So this is a really telling chart about renewable diesel versus biodiesel. You probably, so you can see here where the margins have been. So for renewable diesel is the top blue line, the biodiesel is the bottom orange line. Now, I will also say that I worked for a member of Congress from the Boot Hill of Missouri. Biodiesel was very important to us in soybeans. So, I was advocating for more support for biodiesel then. But when you look at this, the margins just aren't very good for that industry. Now click one more time. So that'll show you without tax credits, renewable diesel gross margins, negative 377. Biodiesel, negative 422. Now let's go to the next chart. But if you throw in the RINs and some of the credits that you can receive, low carbon fuel credits, the line looks a little bit better. So it actually shows, if you click one more time, as you can see where the projection is with credits, the margin is positive for renewable diesel. So you can see a business, then the industry going, hey, we want to get into this. Biodiesel, not as competitive. And you're going, well, why would anybody produce anything at a loss? Well, you kind of have to. If we're requiring so much renewable fuels because of climate change or a greenhouse gas and the things that we need to do to be sustainable country and support the global world, it kind of forces us into this industry, even if we don't make money on it. But when we look at what could happen with renewable diesel, we think a lot more folks are going to get into it and transition. Don't have anything about ethanol on here, do you? Well, it's really where we're looking at our competition is renewable diesel. It's cleaner, it's better, it's going to it's the next thing. And one facility is going online already, and 4 more I think are going on next year. So let's roll to the next page. So it was really fun saying where we're looking at on our industry with palatins, chicken fat, beef tallow, choice white grease have doubled and tripled in price just this year. By the end of the year, it's going to be more than that. 2020, we're going to be out of product. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on the industry to do substitution. Vegetables and virgin oils have had a steep price increase. Again, that goes back to why the human food salad dressing, any food manufacturer didn't want us in this space, because they're just fighting for vegetable and virgin oils. Raw materials, product allocation supplier imposed limits of how much of a particular ingredient a pet food can purchase. So one of my companies, the guy that spoke, my chairman of the board, he's with Althea. They could not purchase. I mean, they could not produce, I think, 120 million pounds this year that they could have made, but they are already under supply restrictions. I think they had to tell 12 pet food companies that they couldn't manufacture for them anymore. It's not just, it's not just co-manufacturing. Again, like I said, it's branded. We're looking at an increase in pets, more bowls to feed, harder time getting product. And they were saying that's where we're really making the point of driving home. There will be a scarcity of ingredients in 2022 and beyond. I'm not sure how long this is going to last. We had someone talk to our members earlier in the year, and they're like, don't worry about it. There's a lot of money going into electrical cars. Well, I don't think that that's going to come online fast enough to push the pendulum back into balance for us. So next slide. So what we are asking when we'll be lobbying Congress and agencies is for for an exclusion on mandates and incentives that are used and included in the fats and oils that are historically used in human and pet food. Do I think I can get anywhere with that? Probably not. But people need to know the story and see the economic impact to this. Additionally, we may be out there lobbying for reduction in tariffs maybe from soybean oil or meal coming from South America. That kills me to have to do that whenever I'm a farm kid from the US. I'm all about protecting our supply. But, when you also look at where we're going with our current, soybeans and corn, a lot of exports outside the country. We're going, China's got to feed their hogs, so they're back into swine production after they were devastated by American swine fever, African swine fever. But now, so now they're coming back in, and we're selling grains to them. So we're just really concerned about where we're going to go in the next 2 years with food manufacturing in general. So next thing. All of our resources, all of our information is online. Please go onto our website. You can click to the next slide and we'll show you what we have some really cool interactive videos. The one where you see the dog with the blue dog with his bones. This is really interesting to see why your dogs need fat. Why do they even need chicken fat? Why do they need tallow? This is very important. Dogs, their fat intake is definitely different than ours, but their fat is important. They don't need the calories that we consume as humans, obviously. But when people go to look at doing something a little more human-like with their pet food, I certainly, friends and family, I push them to this website. I'm like, did you know why your pet needs certain things? And amino acids and 40 essential nutrients that your human food is just not going to offer to them. So this is really fun to go through and see what you need for your dog, nose to paw, and for cat, whisker to tail, among other things that we put on there. So you can go to the next slide. And then, of course, we have Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We love getting pictures of people's pets, and we send out a link every once in a while encouraging folks to share their pictures, and we can ask fun questions about what your pets like to do. We can tie it into the Pet Food Institute and what we do to support them living, your pets living long and healthy lives, and you living a long, healthy, and happy life too. So that's kind of the base of my presentation that I've been given recently. I'm happy to answer any questions. And we'll have a little, I'll share a little anecdotal story though about transportation. You all know that we have a challenge with transportation right now, from from ports to rail to trucking. I actually have family members in Arkansas. My mom's brother and his wife were long hauler truck drivers for, I don't know, probably 40 years. They've always driven trucks. That's all I've ever known. Well, they finally retired at 70. And this year, they started driving again at 75 because there was such a need for truck drivers. Now they just do short hauls. They just, from Arkansas to Tennessee, maybe grains to ports, to the river or to mills. And they only drive 3 days a week. And they make 6 figures. And, it's like they're 75 years old and they've come out of retirement to drive. And that's just something that, when those things are going on, you really think about what are we going to have in our future and how are we going to domestically source, transport, produce, redistribute our products. So I'd love to have Dr. Arlo Berry on. Dr. Arlo is only here telling us how we can fix this supply chain and all the nodes, but that is what I have for you today. And look forward to any questions that you may have. So fire away. I do have a hard stop, and I know I've done this so many times, I guess I probably flew through it, but I do have a little bit of an early hard stop on a mission critical call that got moved on me. So up to you. Do you have or know where I can get current? Let me see here. Guy, I see your message. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation there, Dan. I've particularly been looking at this pet food area, trying to get data. I'm a senior economist here at the International Grains Program, so I'm trying to dissect the supply and demand situation to figure out the relevance and the potential impact on what you just talked about. So I'm trying to get data internationally as well as in the U.S. on just quantifying the pet food demand for the various commodities like you had on your slide there. Get a bit of historical context, and I talked to some guys at USDA and they don't have it broken down with the pet food sector pulled out. And then I didn't know whether it was because you're buying food grade stuff on a lot of this, maybe it's included in the food, seed, and industrial part of the numbers. If you got any insight on that, that's what
it gets a little bit tricky, but some of those things are questions that we had too. We used, I would encourage, if you have you pulled up our report yet?
No,
economic impact report. Look at that, and then you can also see where a lot of the information is attributed to. Okay. And how we pulled it. So, and I still get questions because the other day I got a call from the barley guy, and they're like, "Hey, we're selling more barley to pet food than we ever have," but I can't. But even your report doesn't show that. I'm like, well, did we start buying more barley last year? I'm just, and you may recall that the news on dilated cardiomyopathy, that was the grain-free diet. I suspect that a lot of people may have moved from peas and lentils to barley or up in the upper Midwest, and there was barley from the brewers left over. I said, well, but that may be new. This is data from 2018, and I think that's going to look a lot different when we run it again. I wanted to do this every 3 to 5 years. I think some of the inputs are going to look quite a bit different when we run this next year.
All right.
But
No,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just trying to get a general feel of that pet food sector. Is the feed sector is actually, for livestock feed, is surprisingly less elastic than what you might think when it comes to switching commodities around. I'm assuming the pet food sector is probably even more so, and that comes through the labeling, because once they get the products labeled with certain ingredients, and those ingredients become fairly inelastic. Would that be a fair assumption?
Some of the base products, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, some of the formulas are the base of that would probably be the same throughout with some variations. But the more we learn about our pets, more we learn about the allergies. You'll see things now that you've never seen before. And there's a big push right now for some alternative proteins. I have a company that called that wants to join, and they're all about, grubs, as farming grubs, or, different insects for that. And I'm not sure that we're quite there yet. And I can't imagine what that cost is going to be. But all things heading in the direction, we may be looking for a lot of different things and change. And you are absolutely right. Changing our label or changing our formula can't just happen overnight. So things, again, I guess I said that those base 5 are where you look at those top 10 ingredients. That's going to stay pretty true.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll call you and have a more in-depth conversation.
Please do. Make sure you get my information too, Guy.
Yeah, no worries.
Anybody else? Anybody have any questions about DC and how functional we are right here, right now?
Dana, we have a question from
Sure.
Vicki. She said, as pet owners, what can we do to ensure our pets have adequate and quality food during the next years?
That's a really good question. We don't think that there's going to be a shortage. We think that the shelves might look a little bit different. You may not have, now you go down a grocery shelf and you could see so many different products ranging, in formulas. We may have to cut some of the back, and we may have to really stick with, what the supply is available and how we can drive that market. We certainly encourage folks not to hoard or stock up too much, because we want it has a long shelf life, but it's, you want it to maintain its freshness and nutrition. So wouldn't keep it forever. I just cannot advocate for cooking for your pet. It just concerns me that even if you see there's a shortage, or you may not be able to buy what you've always bought your pet, there's probably a substitute out there that will be available. I'm just not comfortable that we in-house in our home kitchens can provide the nutritional needs that our pets need. Anything else? I'm just perusing through the list real quick to see who I see names that I may recognize. Well, I am always, Deborah, Mary, and Sarah have my contact information. Always happy. Shoot me an email, give me a call. Happy to discuss more. We have wonderful companies there, and I'm sure that if you don't have a contact there, happy to connect you with those as well. As I said, Kansas State is very important to us, and having Dr. Aldridge there is certainly an added bonus for us and for our companies that are there in the state. So Sarah, I don't want to belabor. I hope this was valuable to folks, and let me know if there's anything else I can do to support the MAB program or Kansas State.
Thank you so much. Dana, I know you were short on time. We did have one last question from Megan. Do you have time to answer?
Yes, sure.
She asked how much interaction you have with the FDA in the last few years, specifically whether they are considering these logistics issues.
I speak to someone at FDA almost weekly. That and then I have staff that speak to them as well. Even at 5:30 yesterday, I was on the phone with CVM, the Center for Vet Medicine, and expressed again like a little bit of our nervousness about the supply chain. They can't, it's like in some ways they don't really have a role in that. But what I've asked them to do is when they're sitting in other meetings with administration or cabinet members, they just remind them about pet food as well, and that we want to make sure we have what we need. I have asked them for also to keep in mind if we do have to do some reformulation or changing an ingredient, it's an arduous and slow process, and that we need them to staff up at FDA to be able to better support our industry. We actually lobbied for $10 million per year recently, additional to FDA CVM, to help them do more hires, because we really were struggling getting new ingredients approved. Our labels are reviewed in the states, and it's probably a one-person job there, and things get really delayed there. Someone can misinterpret something, it's really painful process. So we do spend a lot of time supporting the agency. We could be mad and kick and scream, but they still are our regulatory body and oversight, and it's better for us to work with them and try to help support them as they support us. So yeah, FDA is mission critical for us every day. Oh, well, Megan, what do you do?
I'm a brand manager in cattle marketing.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, FDA is in my daily life as well.
Yeah, so always be careful what you wish for, right? So
Yeah.
I worked in dairy last, and I thought we were complicated until I went to the pet food industry. Whole another ball game.
There you go. Yeah, I was last year I worked for Elanco as well too. So
you did? Okay,
yeah.
well, we need to connect offline as well then.
Sounds good. It was nice to meet you today.
Oh, it was nice though. I'd like to meet you again. Thank you. Thanks for your comment on that. And I also hired my newest hire here on staff is a former Elanco employee, Savon Coy, and she was in the DC office just before me, and had to handle all of the antibiotic programs and ractopamine. Well, we shouldn't even say that word out loud. So you're probably going to be flashed off your computer now.
Yeah, I know how it goes. So thank you.
Yeah, and Vicki, I'm happy. Pets are very important to me. I'm just keeping on myself. A quick personal story. My father was killed in a farm accident in 96. He was 48 years old. My mom was 46 years old. My youngest sister was still at home. They went back to try to help. It was complete, absolute, craziest, most challenging, emotional, everything on top of it. I was 24, 25, trying to manage a farm and everything along with all the challenges with that. And honest to goodness, it was a rescue Chihuahua that kept my mother alive. My mom was in really bad mental shape, heartbroken syndrome. And her getting up to, after my sister, she was a senior and then she left. And the only thing that my mom would really motivate her to get up and do anything was that little dog that none of us had a relationship with, but my mom. And it really was what kept her up and moving. And She has a heart for animals, and she takes in anything, miniature horse, dogs, chickens. You know, if you're in Southeast Arkansas, you just say, you know, Iris Brooks, the lady with all the dogs, cats, and whatever, and people know her. But when I interviewed for the job, you know, it was like really understanding about the human animal bond and the importance of good nutrition. I didn't tell, you know, when I interviewed that my mom would get up and cook spaghetti because that was the Chihuahua's favorite food. But we've worked on that since. But it's very important to me, and it's a passion for me. And if I couldn't represent, you know, leaving agriculture, this is I thought was the next best thing, but really and truly it is the best thing for me, and I love it every day.
Yeah, it's amazing the bond we have with our animals. I'm a K-State veterinarian a long time ago. So it never ceases to amaze me, the bond we have with our animals. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. When I watch the videos or different things that I learned from research, it's chilling, it's shocking, it's incredible. You know, and I'm definitely one of those people that watch the dog and cat videos at night when I can't sleep, you know, to feel good. But when you really learn about what dogs can sense and feel and react to, and we work with pet partners. I'm on the board for pet partners. Also done some stuff with some of the veterans. We've supported them to rescue animals for animals for wounded servicemen. And we support what's called the Paws Act. So it's allowing pets to go supporting grants for shelters, not for the pets, but for people that have been a part of domestic abuse.
Mhm.
So many women and men wouldn't leave home because of their pet. And we've looked for grants and opportunities to support domestic violence shelters to take in pets. And a lot of our companies donate a lot of resources and food to those. So man, every day there's a good story from our companies, from the industry. And it's a proud place to work.
Animal passion is a good calling to have.
Yes, ma'am. So do you see any shortages where you take into consideration differing diets? Pets from dogs to snakes. I am very blessed that I only represent dogs and cats. Because talk about challenging diets and getting those things approved for reptiles. I work really closely with a sister trade association here in DC that does represent some of the retailers. They do, as well as more exotic animals. That's a whole nother challenge. When you take into consideration different diets, yes, they're, unfortunately, we're going to be competing against ourselves at times. And those that can do longer contracts, bigger facilities, have the capacity to be able to store and move, probably are going to make it through this crisis a little better than those that are very close to on-time supply. And I honestly couldn't tell you how many different products probably go into a reptile food, but I guess one of the things they probably don't consume as much as our Great Danes, but I think that they'll also experience some challenges as well. Well, I am going to have to go, but it was, again, a pleasure. Call anytime, get my contact information, you can follow me on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I do work on those two sites. So Mary, thank you very much. It's always fun to see you. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
Dana. We appreciate you so very much. For all of you folks that are still on, I do have a couple of MAB slides that I put on the back end just because I knew Dana would be short on time. Just a couple with our contact information. Our first one here is just about scheduling an advising appointment. If you are not already a student or an alumni here with the MAB, you can schedule an appointment with Deborah. Or you can call or email myself or Mary. We are here to help you make decisions in your career and in your education to help further your career. So go ahead and get on our website or shoot one of us an email and we can connect you with an advising appointment. We have a few future events coming up. We have our November 9th informational webinar at 12 noon Central. That is our webinar where we talk about what you can expect with the program. Or if you have any colleagues that you think would be interested in the program, feel free to let them know about that informational webinar. On November 23rd, we have an MAB for Life webinar. Amy will be presenting her white paper with her major professor. And then lastly, on December 8th, we are going to have a ugly sweater and networking night starting at 7 p.m., 7 to 8:30 Central Time. Feel free to join and leave as your schedule allows. We would love to see you there for the ugly sweater networking night. And lastly, let's connect on social media. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. We're on there, so feel free to reach out, get connected to us. We have great resources for the agribusiness industry. We hope you all have a great rest of your day. If you would like to get in touch with Dana, feel free to shoot me an email and I can get you her information. Thanks for joining us today.